Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session, our 30-minute session hosted by PA Together for Tourism. My name is Genevieve Uno, and I am not only hosting this session today, but I'm also presenting. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that Social Route conducts our business on the traditional unceded territories of the Hupetchisut and Sechot First Nation. And the title for today's session is called Now That We Have Tools in Our Kit, Let's Build. Little background information on why the title is structured that way is because this is our last webinar in the series that we have organized so far. I'm hoping to get some feedback in the next week or so. So if you are enjoying these sessions, we're looking at continuing them or changing the way that we disseminate information and engage with the business community here in Port Alberni. And the idea around this session is to kind of consolidate everything that we've heard, all the technical, actionable components of the sessions, and really distill that down so that we can, as a tourism community and tourism businesses, can start thinking about the main or the key things that we've been hearing over the series. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder of Social Route Consulting, and I have a history in sustainable tourism development. I have over 10 years experience working within the tourism and outdoor rec sectors with an undergrad in tourism management and an MA in natural resources and environmental studies. And beyond the academic and professional side of my life, I've also done an extensive amount of travel. I've traveled to over 23 countries, and that's really given me a personal and practical perspective on the travel industry, from backpackers to tour operators to really packaged offerings. So I'll get started on the presentation, and I'll keep it really informal. If there's questions that pop up during the presentation, feel free to interject and ask them. And then, as always, these are recorded, so if there's questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to try and answer those questions. Oops, there we go. All right. So just a quick little background of what Social Route Consulting exactly is. We're a purpose-driven consulting collective that aims to elevate the efforts of governments, businesses, and organizations to be courageous leaders in their community. And we do this by supporting the creation of new socially and environmentally conscious systems. We do that in three predominant ways, or streams, if you want to think about it in those terms. So we focus on research, qualitative and quantitative research. We also set up development projects that are usually community focused. And then we also work within the facilitation and workshop stream. So as you can see, we've done these series, so that's one of the services and offerings that we offer to our clients. Just going over again a little bit of context as to why this session is designed the way it is. I'm really hoping to provide key information on the ways tourism businesses can start operating, and really looking at a renewed understanding of what our post-COVID realities might look like. As we've heard in the last week, Minister John Horgan has released the BC Restart Plan, and that's really brought to light the different phases that our tourism businesses are going to start experiencing and engaging with. Also, from a destination marketing perspective, Destination BC also released their recovery plan with different phases as well. I'll get into that a little bit later. But it really highlights that as we start to shift again to opening our doors, offering experiences and products to residents, regional travelers as time goes on. There's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of change, and there's a lot of So I'm just admitting someone else here. We have a latecomer, but that's okay. Welcome, Lance. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of shifting, and there's a lot of opportunity in the ways that we look at our business operations. And so for the purposes of this session, and what we've heard from the past sessions, I feel like there's three key messages here. And the first one is focusing on the hyper-local tourism market this summer. And by hyper-local, I mean the residents of Port Alberni, and then looking at those phases and how we can operate and inviting our neighbors such as Tofino, Parksville, Ucluelet, from a regional to island-wide to provincial and onward. So there's a lot of interesting pieces I'll share in that. The second one is the future of the tourism industry is a sustainable one. No longer is our economy going to be, I don't think, operating in the same ways it traditionally has. We've seen massive hits to the tourism industry, and I think that economic growth without climate action or climate mitigation will no longer be feasible. So how are we going to look at integrating sustainable initiatives and plans within our business operations, within our vision, and all encompassing in everything that we do as tourism operators? And then lastly, a collective voice for change. As we know, our tourism industry is still in its infancy here in Port Alberni, and I think there's a real opportunity and a silver lining because of the pandemic for us to hold this space to really discuss, you know, what does the industry look like, or how do we want to shape it moving forward? And I believe that a collective voice and a unified voice will help create change in a way that we want to see the industry grow and develop here in Port Alberni. All right, so the first one, a focus on the hyper-local this summer. As I discussed before, quickly mentioned, Destination British Columbia released their Road to Recovery plan. So what you can see here is the different phases, and they've outlined 3. The provincial government has outlined 4, but with a focus on tourism, we can really see that as of mid-May, we're into phase 2. And that's inviting people from our community to explore the tourism offerings that are available. And I think that as we cautiously open our doors and work through the WorkSafe BC and health and safety regulations that will have to be taken into consideration, there's also a lot of ways we can think about inviting residents who may have never taken a tour or experienced your product before. And so I think that as a business, this is a way that we can comprehensively review what the business is. So that might look like business planning, your packaging. What are you offering? Is it going to be the same thing that you offered traditionally in the past, or are you going to have to relook at what your packages are so that it can accommodate the local market? And that includes pricing, that includes marketing, and as well as financial planning. So I have a few other ideas here that I wanted to share, focusing again on that hyper-local market, or that domestic market. Number one, I think aligning a brand or a slogan would greatly help the tourism businesses here in town. We do have Explore Port Alberni, which is a little bit more of an out-facing campaign. And if we look at an inward-facing campaign, I'm going to shamelessly plug PA Together for Tourism, because I think that's a great message. If we're inviting local residents to experience the trails, if we're inviting them to experience the unique cafes and restaurants, or the ATV tours, whatever it might be, why not start elevating that message that we're here together to experience and support the tourism industry? The second one is considering how your product or experience can be made accessible to local residents. That goes back to looking at your pricing sheets or your product pricing, it might look like you have to change what you can offer so that it's affordable for our local market. And that feeds into number 3. So creating a local package that includes an affordable price point. And in an ideal world, we do want to go back to the way things were. We want to be able to offer the full experience, the full package that helps support your livelihoods. And I think with some creativity and reimagining what your products can look like for a local market, it can be just as successful and help keep your doors open. And then fourth recommendation or idea was offering incentives for families, youth, and seniors. And I feel like this one kind of echoes the previous session with the Tourism Cafe from Nancy and Leslie, who gave a great presentation. And they really talked about looking at different demographics and visitor markets. So really leveraging, who are you catering to? Are there different demographics of people that you might be able to offer an experience or product to? Are there any questions so far? All right, I'll keep going. So I wanted to offer a fairly local example of a business here on Vancouver Island that's catering to the hyper-local market, and that's Hotel Zed. And they've decided to focus on the business community, and they're offering self-contained workspaces with fast Wi-Fi. As we know, we're all on Zoom calls, we're all on phone calls, doing our business through the internet, and they're offering that at low weekly rates. So I thought that was a really innovative way to catering to their local market. There's a lot of people who are in business who might be out of office and not have a home set up. So why not go to Hotel Zed and do your business there? The second key message that I really wanted to share, that I'm seeing a lot of information on, a lot of constant messaging, and I'm not sure if those are just the echo chambers I'm in, because I'm passionate about regenerative and sustainable tourism, but because of the pandemic, we're not going to go back to business as usual, and I think that really includes a green future for the tourism industry. I know this slide looks a little bit busy, but I had to include this graphic from the Tourism Collab because to me, it really encompassed everything that a tourism business, a destination marketing organization should be looking at. And that's really from a design and systems thinking approach. So I'm not sure if everyone can read it, but there's this honeycomb visual where, there's a lot of things to consider, where it's quality jobs and meaningful work, transformative visitor experiences, decarbonized tourism economy, mobile lives. So there's a lot of different components to this graphic, but it's really highlighting that unleashing the power of tourism in post-COVID recovery. So looking at a holistic approach to your business so that it can continue to build that resiliency as we phase out of the pandemic and look at a new tourism economy. As some of you might know, Social Route uses the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework for every project that we do. And I'm a big advocate in helping businesses understand what the Sustainable Development Goals are. And it's a really great platform and guide and goal for the tourism business to consider. And just reading right off of the sheet here is the SDGs can be framed as an overarching framework in business strategies when connected to sustainable operations and development. So using those SDGs as guidance to become a more sustainable tour operator with operations that have a positive impact on the world. We were fortunate enough to go to New Zealand back in 2019 and share our research on on the intersections of Indigenous tourism growth here in Canada and child protection. And that was really overlaid with SDG 17, partnerships for the goals, as well as number 8, decent work and economic growth. So as you can see, the 17 goals, you could layer a lens on all of them, on how tourism contributes or the responsibilities of the tourism industry. And that really funnels down to the individual operator. So if there's any more questions around tourism and the Sustainable Development Goals, I am happy to have a different conversation, because I could go on forever around how effective the SDGs are in terms of building out your sustainability initiative and contributing to a larger sustainability goal. I have a local example of a festival here in town, the Shaker Music Festival. Social Root's been collaborating with them for the last few years now, but this is a great local example of a festival, an event here, tourism offering that has integrated sustainability into their festival. So each year they do waste audits. They've diversified their waste streams to include organics, recycling, and landfill waste. So it's not just going into one garbage can, it's being separated out, which has really increased the results of the waste audits that we're seeing over the years. Last year, they introduced a Water Smart Rain Barrel campaign. This was a really great awareness raising campaign around harvesting water, highlighted some local artists, and it also raised money for the continued programming for the sustainability initiatives. They were the first festival to be a Leave No Trace Canada member, so aligning the Leave No Trace ethics to the festival there, and the list goes on. I won't spend too much time. So if you have any questions around that, you can go see their website. And then the last key theme is a collective voice for change. I really feel like I said in the beginning, there's a real opportunity for the tourism operators here in Port Alberni to align our goals and our vision of what the tourism industry can look like here in the community. And I feel like taking a community-centric approach to destination management is one of the best ways that we can see some development and growth in the community for the tourism industry. So one of the ways that I think we could do that is by creating a multi-stakeholder collaboration mechanism for packages. So that's aiming at the domestic market. Why not connect as stakeholders and figure out a way that we can engage our residents to experience our products? How can we work together? How can we collaborate to build a package that's unique for the residents and that is benefiting each of the stakeholders? That's something we can do immediately or in the short term as we continue to live in these phases of pandemic, post-pandemic environments. Secondly, I think it would be really beneficial for the industry to create a development and marketing plan that includes the needs of all the tourism stakeholders. And I think this needs to be a fairly comprehensive plan, but one that again echoes the voices and the goals of the stakeholders, and also including residents into this plan as well. We know from a sustainability and a regenerative perspective that the tourism industry cannot be exploitative of the host community. So it really has to benefit the hosts, the visitors, and the tourism stakeholders. And then lastly, incorporating time where industry can network and foster relationships. PA Together for Tourism has been a great platform to engage on and I guess recognize or see your fellow tourism operators. But I think there's opportunity for us to engage more meaningfully on a regular basis so that we can hear what our fellow tourism operators are looking to do, what direction they're interested in developing in, how we might be able to work together in the future. There's a lot of opportunity there. So those are just a few ideas, a few ways that we could take a community-centric approach to our destination management. Another thing that I thought would be a cool idea would also to do, I guess, an audit of who's doing what in terms of sustainability. So kind of linking back to that second key theme is, you know, who's doing what, how can we support each other in a unified goal for sustainability. And then my last slide here is really just highlighting, you know, if we do start incorporating some of these key themes or key messages that were outlined in this session, there are a lot of benefits. You know, looking at local markets, that's something that can be done immediately. Looking at how you can align your operations in a more sustainable and regenerative way is something that you can start looking at now and in the near future. And then coming together and building those stakeholder relationships can be ongoing. But ultimately, with those three things in mind and with action starting to take place, we can see the benefits that are outlined in this slide. So improving the quality of life for residents, providing a revitalization that can be comparable with existing natural resource-based economies often found in rural areas, so specifically Port Alberni, improve community image and stimulate civic participation, increasing small business and entrepreneurial opportunities, creating jobs, increasing land values, bringing outside dollars into the community. That would be lovely. And then improving the quality of the environment in conjunction with all of these. So I wanted to now bring it to a point where we hear from the audience. I'm not sure if we have how many people we have or who would be interested in contributing some of their thoughts. But what I'm interested to hear are, you know, what do you think we need to do or that you need to do as a tourism operator going forward, having now a bit of a foundation and hearing what the overall thoughts were on this session. So I'll just, I'll let someone else take the floor if they'd like to. Not all at once, guys.
Okay, I'm not an operator, but I will speak from the perspective of my volunteer role assisting an organization. It's so critical to use this time as an opportunity to really harness the transformation, the transformative and regenerative approach, continuing to build your business. And I like that you brought up the sustainable development goals that can be wrapped into that, because it's so easy to start even with just one or two and inch towards incorporating those into your business plans. Mm-hmm. There's 17 and you can't do all at once. So even just taking the time now, if you have it, to look and focus on one or two and starting to integrate those if you haven't already. And then of course, that stakeholder engagement is going to be so important moving forward together, everyone being on the same page. Now is the time to have those conversations about what is your collective vision, and then reaching out to your community to ensure that your messaging is something that's comforting towards them. And like, even just as a resident in Qualicum Beach, like, I love my community, and if there's more things that can be offered locally for me to support this place, and as we come out of the pandemic, I'm going to be all over it. We're absolutely the first ones who are going to be supporting our local communities. So the more there is for me to do, I'm just going to jump on it, because I want to make sure that all the businesses here are supported as much as they can be, especially if they've suffered quite a bit in the last couple of months, and especially new businesses that were just developing themselves and then had to deal with the COVID impact. So I think it's important just to definitely reach out to your partners, stakeholders, your community members, absolutely, because the support is so overwhelmingly needed.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And so many of the messages from the sessions previously were really about those partnerships and those collaborations. And I really want to echo that, because I think, like you also said, even just from a resident perspective, supporting your local community is a way of, to me, engaging and potentially elevating that to partnerships or contributing to a project, whatever that might look like. So I thank you, Sarah. That was important messaging.
You know, I hate public speaking. That's why I always like the last to share. I agree. We're at the point with our business of really, we're a year and a half away, but events in general are going to be the last that are allowed to really get back to being what they were, especially large events. So it's going to be making people feel, somehow having our marketing show that, making people feel comfortable that we're taking steps and how we're going to be, you know, moving forward with the way the world is now, and as far as cleanliness and how we're keeping our guests safe for that whole time. So maybe there's a way, even with the sustainable initiative that we do maybe yearly too, where it could be something that ties in to that as well. I don't know. That's just throwing that out there. But we're at our point where we're starting to release marketing, at least of supporting, making sure our guests are, we're saying thank you to our sponsors and everybody who's helped and supporting, pushing to use our reach to make sure that we're showing our appreciation for everybody who's put into it as well, so that our reach really give back to the community in that way. And then it's nice to see that cross collaboration with different tourism companies around town locally, maybe getting together, because we're all working towards the same goal of reopening. So how that's going to look, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's a really important component, Victoria, is that reinforcing to your guests that trust and that safety that they have felt previously. And I think that's a really important and integral piece to starting to open your doors again, or starting to, you know, reconnecting with your client base, your customer base, through that marketing is really highlighting what you're doing to establish a safe and healthy environment for your guests to experience your product or experience. And that's certainly echoed in all of the destination management and marketing organizations, is highlighting those initiatives. And I see direct connections with the Sustainable Development Goals, so we can definitely work on that as well, and brainstorm a little bit. Any other questions or comments?
I would wonder, I think maybe from like Lance, from your perspective, let's say just as an event operator, other than connecting with your partners and that messaging to the community, how do you plan to change your next event, or like the very next thing you do?
Yeah. Our very next thing we do is might be something like an outdoor movie theater with a hospice. We've been approached, so that we would be controlling numbers, going into having somebody man the washrooms, wipe them down after, kind of watching that, and then at least everything's outdoor and separated. But for something like our shaker, it's so far in advance to see what the protocol in general is going to be, and if this is squashed by, say, fall and there are no more new cases in winter. It just depends how severe it's going to be, probably by next spring, to see what kind of protocols we bring forth, whether masks are even still going to be a thing or anything. Like, it's so hard. Even where I work right now, we are still waiting for protocol from our governing bodies to be able to go back to work too. And everything's just so changing so much because they're still waiting on the research and testing to see. So it'll be, at least we're not reinventing the wheel. There's so many large events with a lot larger events that have money backing them, that they're going to have teams figuring out also what needs to be done. So we'll be able to collaborate hopefully with a lot of other events and figure out what they're doing and measures they're taking as well to moving forward.
Another great reason to just keep connected to all those partners, because there could be some really creative and innovative
Totally
kind of spin off of that.
adapting to it too. Maybe certain events are going to be something totally different that we haven't seen before. I mean, there's a lot of online concerts and stuff in the time being, and technology is really playing a big role too. So being creative about that for sure. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. So if there's no other comments or questions, I did want to end this session with a quote. This quote is from a woman named Diane Dredge. She's actually the director of the Tourism Collab, where that graphic in my session came from. And she was writing this from her perspective, her personal perspective, and I quote, "It appears some are already on a one-dimensional marketing-led approach to tourism recovery. But the market has changed. Local visitor economies will be the first to return, but these markets are more ethical, aware, and thoughtful than they were pre-COVID and pre-COVID. Call it anecdotal interpretation through decades of experience, but my conversations reveal that the real vision and tourism leadership are going to come from destinations that offer something more. They deliver purpose-driven tourism, transformational visitor experiences, and benefits to all stakeholders. These destinations will appeal to the heads and the hearts of travelers and won't need to compete on price point. A marketing-led approach is very 1980s. Designing tourism for good means engaging with systems thinking, complexity, and creative thinking." And I feel like that really just wraps up in a nice, concise way all of the sessions that we've had so far, and really highlights that now is an opportunity to take the time to reimagine what our industry looks like, and how individually we can look at our products and experiences and get creative and look at different ways to address the changes in the markets and in our economy. So I'll leave it as that. Thank you for those who attended today. It means a lot to see the faces on the sidebar, so thank you. And again, if you have any questions down the road, feel free to connect with me. Everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, you too. Thanks, see ya.
Bye.